Hello students, welcome to the first session for 12th standard science biology. Well, taking into consideration the scenario that is going on, the population of our country as well as of the world is gradually increasing day by day. Now, how this population is getting increased? So one of the major methods by which the population is increasing and we are concerned about it, that is said to be the reproduction. So our first chapter deals with the reproduction in case of various organisms. Now let us go into the crux of it. What do we understand by the word reproduction? So from the definition point of view, it is a biological process in which an organism gives rise to young ones similar to itself. So basically, it is a biological process, a process by which one category of organisms will be giving rise to the exact same category of organisms. Just as, for example, humans will be giving rise to the humans. The cats will be giving rise to the cats, and likewise various other organisms. So that is the basic thing about the definition of reproduction. Now, based on the involvement of the organisms, that is either one organism or two organisms, we have two basic types of the reproduction, that is the asexual reproduction and the sexual reproduction. Let us talk about the first one, that is the asexual reproduction. Now, the asexual reproduction involves only one organism, and that one organism will be producing exact copies of itself. Just as, for example, if amoeba is there, amoeba is a unicellular organism. When amoeba reproduces, it will be producing the new exactly similar amoebae, having the contents similar to that of the parents. So the new copies which are produced, which are exactly similar to that of the parents, they are said to be the clones. And there are various methods in this asexual reproduction. The most common is the binary fission in case of the amoeba. Now, in case of the amoeba, it undergoes two types of division. First of all, the nucleus will be undergoing the division, that is known as the nuclear division. And later on, by the grooves of the membrane, the cytoplasm will also be getting divided. So that is said to be the cytoplasmic division. So likewise, first the nuclear division and then later on the cytoplasmic division takes place, giving rise to two amoebae. So from one amoeba, two amoebae are basically generated, and that is said to be binary fission. Bi means two. So from one organism, two organisms are mainly generated. Exactly in a similar way, one more major example, that is the budding in case of yeast. Now, yeast is also likewise a unicellular organism. Here also, in yeast, a small outgrowth is being generated, and that small outgrowth is known as a bud. That bud will increase in size due to the accumulation of the food substances. It will become heavy, and later on, due to the environmental effect, it will be getting detached from the parent and will be living as a new yeast organism. So these are the two basic examples for the asexual reproduction. Now, along with the asexual reproduction in case of amoeba and the yeast, there are various other organisms where there are specialized reproductive structures for the purpose of reproduction. Let us go into the crux of it. Just as in case of the animals, the reproductive structures for the chlamydomonas, it mainly possesses zoospores. Likewise, in penicillium, it possesses conidia. The third one, hydra, an aquatic organism mainly possessing small buds. And sponge, it possesses gemmules, small microscopic bodies. Likewise, in case of the angiosperms, the reproductive bodies found in various organisms are, for potato, the reproductive structures are the eyes, small dots which are found on the surface of the potatoes. Ginger, it possesses rhizomes. Then agave, it possesses bulbil. Bryophyllum, it has a huge leaf. So at the border of the leaf, small buds are there, and they are said to be the leaf buds. And water hyacinth, it possesses the offsets. Now, water hyacinth, also known as the terror of Bengal. Now, it occupies the entire surface of a particular lake. It reproduces very fast. And one of the main highlighting feature why it is said to be a terror, because it mainly takes up the oxygen content of the water inside a particular lake, and it grows on the surface. So as the oxygen content of the water is taken away, the aquatic organisms who are living beneath it, they find it some sort of difficulty in getting that oxygen, and it reproduces also very fast. So therefore it is said to be the terror of Bengal. Now, focusing on the sexual reproduction, what do we understand by the term sexual reproduction? Well, here the main thing is that the involvement of both the parents or either one parent is there. But here different gametes are mainly generated. That is the male gamete and the female gamete. So at the time of sexual reproduction, the male gametes and the female gametes ultimately combine together to form a single cell structure that is said to be a zygote. So let us see the crux of this sexual reproduction and what happens during it. So at the time of sexual reproduction, the formation of the male and the female gametes takes place. The male gamete, normally in case of humans we call it as the sperms, and the process of formation of the sperms is known as spermatogenesis. So that process mainly takes place in case of the males. Likewise, in case of the human female, the process that is said to be the oogenesis, that is the formation of the ova or the egg in the body of a female. So the process ultimately takes place in the body of a male or a female human. Further, the fusion of the male and the female gametes takes place to form a single cell structure that is said to be a zygote. And one of the most important properties that differs the asexual reproduction from the sexual reproduction is that in case of the sexual reproduction, here identical organisms are not generated. So here not identical to the parents. In case of the asexual reproduction, we have seen that From amoeba, the new daughter amoebae are generated, which are exactly similar to the parent. But in case of the human beings, the new generation which is being generated, a lot of difference is there between the young ones and the parents, either anatomically or physically. Differences are definitely there. Further, in order to reach the sexual maturity, the growth period which is found in case of various organisms, that growth period is said to be the juvenile phase. Juvenile phase, specifically in case of the animals. That is the time during which they attain the sexual maturity. So the time prior to the sexual maturity, that is said to be the juvenile phase. And in case of the plants, such a phase is said to be the vegetative phase. And the end of the juvenile phase or the vegetative phase, it marks the beginning of the reproductive phase, when the organisms are sexually mature to be a father or a mother. Furthermore, there are a lot of plants and animals, in order to produce the sexual maturity, they produce certain types of the sex cells. That is, in case of the plants, the sex cells that are mainly generated, that is the flowers. So are flowers, they produce throughout the year, or there are seasonal flowers? Yes, both the examples are there. That is, in case of plants, one of the bamboo species, it produces flowers only once in a lifetime. Likewise, the scientific name of one organism known as the Nila Urangi, the scientific name is Strobilanthus kunthiana. It produces flowers in around about 12 years, once in 12 years, and last time that it was mainly produced, that was in September to October 2006. Furthermore, in case of animals also, focusing on the females undergo a lot of cyclic changes to prepare its body in such a way so that the young one can be accommodated inside the body. So they undergo a lot of cyclic changes. So what are the names of these cyclic changes? In case of the non-primate animals, means like the cows and the sheep, they are known as the ostrus cycle. So the cycle which is mainly producing a lot of changes in case of non-primates, that is said to be the ostrus cycle. Exactly in a similar way, in case of the primates, that is the monkey, apes and the humans, it is said to be the menstrual cycle. Now furthermore, a lot of seasonal and the continuous breeders are there. Now what are these seasonal and continuous breeders? Those organisms who breed only during a particular season. Like for example, frogs. They breed only during the monsoon season. So therefore they are said to be the seasonal breeders. While there are a lot of organisms who do not have a particular season of breeding. Likewise in case of a lot of mammals are there. So they are said to be the continuous breeders. Now, by the end of the reproductive phase, what happens? So the end of the reproductive phase marks the beginning of senescence. One of the highlighting English words specifically used for the biology purpose, that is said to be the senescence. Senescence means the old age. So the beginning of the old age is nothing but the end of the reproductive phase. And who is responsible for the transition from the reproductive phase to the senescence? Well, a lot of hormones are mainly responsible for it. And these hormones, along with the environmental conditions, they bring about the changes and the transition from the reproductive phase
to the senescence and ultimately death also. Now let us divide this entire sexual reproductive events into various categories. They are the pre-fertilization, the fertilization and the post-fertilization. Well, talking about the first event, that is the pre-fertilization events. Pre means before, and fertilization means the fusion of the male and the female gametes. So before the fusion of the male and the female gametes, what happens? So that is the event, that is the pre-fertilization events. Basically, it is the event that takes place prior to fusion, before fusion. Now what happens during at that time? There are two major steps, there are two major events which basically takes place at this time. That is the gametogenesis and the gamete transfer. We are talking about the first one, that is the gametogenesis. Gametes means the sex cells, the male sex cell and the female sex cell. Genesis means the process. So basically it is the process of the formation of the gametes. Now how it takes place? So gametogenesis is nothing but the formation of the male and the female gametes. These gametes are mainly haploid in nature. Haploid means the N type. Just as for example, we humans have 46 chromosomes. So we have 23 pairs of chromosomes. So that 23 pairs, it is diploid. And when you make it half, that is only 23. That is the haploid one. Fine. Further, these gametes are of various types. The first type, the isogametes, also known as the homogametes. Iso means the same. So here the male gametes and the female gametes are exactly the same. You cannot distinguish between the male and the female gametes. One of the example is the cladophora, which is one type of the algae. The other one is the heterogametes. Hetero means different. So here we'll be able to see the clear-cut difference between the male and the female gametes. The regular examples, that is the fucus, one type of algae, and the human beings. Now there are specific names which are given to the males and the female gametes. What are they called as? The male gamete is known as the antherozoid, also known as the sperm, and the female gamete is known as the egg or the ovum. Now how do these organisms they get sexually mature? So talking about the sexuality of the organisms, there are two kinds of such sexuality, that is the unisexual and the bisexual. What do we understand by the word bisexual? Bisexual means if the male and the female gametes are present in one organism only, then it is said to be a bisexual organism. And if it is present in other organisms or different organisms, means a male organism having only male gametes and a female organism having only female gametes, and as they are different from each other, they are said to be the unisexual organisms. Let us go into the other names and the examples of it. The bisexual ones, in case of various plants and algae, it is said to be homothallic and monoecious also. And the unisexual is also known as the heterothallic and dioecious also. In case of the flowers, the male flower, which is usually a unisexual one, it is said to be a staminate, and it means as it is having a male reproductive organ, that is a stamen. And in case of the female flower, which is also a unisexual one, it is said to be a pistillate flower because it is having a female reproductive organ, that is a pistil. Likewise, the monoecious and the dioecious. The monoecious plants, that is the cucurbits and the coconut, and the dioecious plants, that is the papaya and the date palm. Now how about in case of the animals? In case of animals, we use one specialized term for the involvement of both the male and female gametes in one organism, that is for the bisexual ones, and the name is known as the hermaphrodites. So the male and the female gametes are present in one organism. The best example is that of the earthworm. Now how the organisms undergo the cell division, that is how the gametes they undergo the cell division. Well, there are two basic types of the gametes that we have discussed very well, that is the haploid and the diploid. Haploid is generally N type and the diploid is generally 2N types. The examples of the haploid are Monera, fungi, algae and the bryophytes. And in case of diploid, humans are the best examples. Now how do they undergo some sort of division? In the 11th standard, you might have learnt about mitosis and meiosis. So here exactly the same processes. The haploid gametes will be undergoing the division by means of the mitosis, and the diploid gametes will be undergoing division by means of the meiosis.